Crystal Tower information, Whiskey 2153 Zulu, wind 060 at 5.
076 Mike Juliet, this is departure radar contact.
Hazardous weather information from Minnesota available on flight service frequency.
You've dialed in the Flying Midwest podcast, connecting aviators from across America's heartland, sharing news, information, and events from around the region.
Calling 1953 on Nugget Tower, roger, turn left heading 070, runway 9er, clear for takeoff.
Sit back, relax, and join our crew for some hangar talk as we discuss a wide variety of regional aviation topics.
Archer 71143, flying flag, runway 28 left, quick takeoff, left hand southbound first.
And now, from our home at the Anoka County Blaine Airport, our checklist is complete, and we're ready for departure for another episode of the Flying Midwest podcast.
Contact departure on your flight.
Welcome, everyone, to the Flying Midwest podcast. My name is Maddie, and I'm joined with the Badger pilot. Say hi, Badger.
Hello.
And Jim.
What's going on?
We're happy to see you here.
So what's everyone been up to?
Flying.
I think you put out some videos recently, haven't you?
Yeah, actually, I just put out the video of my last flight and landing as a member of the flying club, which I've, of course, since left in order to buy my plane. So videos of my plane will be hopefully coming soon, as I'm trying to catch up from being a year behind in video editing.
No kidding, you're that you got that much content to work through?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
A lot
It's
of
a
it's
good
going
problem
to
to have.
skipped.
But
Yeah, a lot of it's going to end up getting skipped because I want to fast forward to modern day and current times and my new plane. And
Gotcha.
I've had a few people actually reach out. When are we going to see videos of the new plane? So it's coming. I've been flying it. I've been flying it a lot. I've got like 30, 35 hours in the plane already. So
Nice.
okay. You haven't had it how long, have you?
February. So 3
Well,
months.
that's not bad at all since February. 30 hours?
Yeah. So
Good for you, man.
So not to plug my own channel, but I'm going to plug my own channel. Go check out the Badger Pilot on YouTube, and sooner than later, hopefully, we'll see videos of the new plane.
And sooner than later, I'll try to get caught up on your videos. So
I won't be mad on you not being caught up until I'm actually caught up on my own. So
fair enough. What have you been up to, Maddie?
Little flying, little sim. I had an interview today.
Yeah. Oh, you did? Can we
did.
talk about it on this podcast or not?
What do you
Or is
think
this
the
just
interview
for
was
us?
for?
The podcast? Are you going to another podcast?
Oh, yeah, totally. I'm dumping you guys. See ya. No.
we know it was a matter of time.
No. Not a new
Good luck in
podcast.
opposing bases.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, I don't see why I couldn't say anything about it. I think it went okay. I mean, the type A pilot in me is like, you could have said more about this, and you didn't display yourself well enough there, and you talked too much about this and not about this. But I think it went as well as it could have, given the fact that I am an anxious mess during interviews. So I think, well, we'll see next week.
That is every interview anyone has ever done for any job ever.
Valid. I was literally on the phone with my
pretty
boyfriend for like an hour before. I was just like, I need to know how to say this. How do I say this and not sound like a complete dunce or incriminate myself legally?
Well, good luck with that, Maddie.
Thanks. It's out of my hands now.
It
Basically, a pilot has to look at it and say, yeah, she doesn't look like she sucks too bad, and then send it through. So,
That's all it takes
Yeah.
these days.
uh,
Well, speaking of trying not to suck at things too much, Jim, how's the CFI stuff going?
damn! No! That's so rude.
And I say that from a place of love because you guys have heard my woes of trying to fly from the right seat. So,
it's not easy to get used to. I'm trying. I really am. I feel a little bit better after my last flight. We went up and did a lot of different stalls.
Good.
Which I have never liked the power on stall. I don't know why.
I don't
I
either.
don't like it. Period. Full stop.
I
right
still
there.
don't like it.
I just don't. It just feels weird to me. And I have a tendency to recover from that maneuver way quicker than I probably should. I don't let it develop as much as I should for the demonstration of that maneuver. But all that said, we went up and I did a bunch of different stalls. And a couple times as we're practicing and I'm demonstrating, I'm like, I need to do that again. because I wanted to try to get the reps in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got to keep working on it. That's all there is to that. It's the other thing, I think I maybe mentioned this in a prior episode, but I'm more confident in presenting the materials when I'm not just reading it off a whiteboard or reading it off my lesson plan and just having a conversation. And the more I can get into the flow of that and the less I can be reliant on my notes and stuff, I think the more confident I'm going to be as I keep going. So there's been a few corrections where I'll be like mid-lesson and I catch myself and my instructor kind of catches me. It's about the same time that we both kind of come to that realization, or at least that I come to the realization and then she corrects me at about the same time. But where it's like, all right, you got to get out of the iPad or off of the whiteboard and let's just talk.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it's a learning experience for me too. So that's the entire point of this.
Mm-hmm. Forever a student.
Mm-hmm. It's one thing to deal with the material in your head and to write it down on a nice lesson plan, and it looks all pretty and fancy, my fancy little template, but then I have to talk about it, and I want to sound like I know what I'm talking about. So if I get my head out of that silly lesson plan and only use it for what it's intended for, it's just being my notes and just talk about what I know, those are when I have better lessons, personally. So, yeah, I still have a ways to go, obviously, but it's going along.
I'm going to come up and take a lesson with you.
Are you?
Yeah.
You gonna log it?
Of course,
yeah.
Once I can actually do it, he absolutely should log it, because then I'm a real CFI. Like, I'm a real boy now.
I'll come up and do a flight review with you.
All right.
There
I
you go.
can't promise it's going to be any good, but we'll do it.
Neither can I.
What would happen if you came up here to do a flight review and I'm like, man, yeah, this isn't working, Badger. I don't think I can sign you off.
Fail.
Then I'd have to do it early enough that I'm not expired yet.
Probably a good plan.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into the sectional showdown here in just a second. But before we do that, I'm going to make a passionate call to action for your help and for your gracious reviews. Yes, we're fishing for reviews, I suppose. But we got an awful lot of people out there that listen, and I assume enjoy the podcast because our numbers look like people keep listening. So we want to keep spreading the good word of Midwest Aviation and just this podcast in general and just having a good old time. So if you could please, this is like my huge plea to everyone, jump on wherever you're listening to this podcast right now and just leave us a review. We will read it down here. We haven't had a review. I hate to say it out loud, but we haven't had a new review in the Apple Podcast platform since July. So we're coming up on a year. So it'd be cool if we had some new stuff to read to all of you. So leave us a review. We will 100% read it on the podcast. And, smash those 5 stars for us. Don't be that one person who clicked 1 star. I don't know what that's about, but Badger, I know it was you. So enough of that. Please help us out. Please help spread the word. That does do things with the algorithms for these podcasting platforms to help push our name out there. So thanks. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. All right, so let's jump into this episode's Pilot Quarters Sectional Showdown, brought to you by our friends at Pilot Quarters, making your next favorite flying shirt. We'll jump into things by talking about our last episode's Sectional Showdown items. All right, so for those of you who haven't seen it, please jump on our Facebook page. You can check that out. It's a post from April 20th. Basically, we've got this gray area on the bottom, and we've got what is your typical tans and stuff of your sectionals up on the top of this, and it's divided by a magenta line and a whole bunch of magenta dots. If you recall, I had said this was the COVID exclusionary zone, I believe. Someone else said something about measles. Did you say something about measles?
I was originally thinking chickenpox or maybe the lava hot zone of the mountain.
Oh.
Or the
I forgot about that. Okay. So of our responses, thank you to those who have posted a response to our sectional showdown. We've got Mark Renus says this is the Marsicol measles and it's highly contagious. Dalbert Lowe says it's a position of all Brian Turner's fan clubs trying to get a glimpse of him flying up the mountain. I mean, there are a lot of dots here, so I can see where that's probably pretty realistic.
Yeah.
Kyle Brady says this is massive erosion, unknown deck altitude. And Christopher Nye says this is craters from tail wheel pilots landing off field. Bill Tracy says this is a legal border crossing area. The more dots, the more illegals.
Oh, no.
One, Bill. Thanks for that. Gary Gary, I'm sorry. It's Gary Kingman, I think. Zombie Apocalypse, ? And the final one I'm going to read here is from Roger Stuckey, and it's the correct answer. This is the contiguous U.S. ADIZ, Air Defense Zone, on the Mexican border. Maddie, is that the correct answer?
That is the correct answer.
Nice job, Roger.
A round of applause.
Yeah, there were some really good answers in there. I appreciate everyone who took the time out to leave some comments, both serious and sarcastic.
Well, I've got one I've been saving for a little while now. So I will share my screen, and for all of our listeners, I will post it on Facebook. So all of our previous sectional showdown symbols have come from a VFR sectional chart. This symbol comes from one of the VFR flyway charts. For those not familiar, flyway charts are used to transition usually underneath some of the busiest airspaces in the country, and they give some extra visual aids. And so this is off of one of the flyway charts. For our listeners, I will put a copy of this picture on Facebook, but when I first saw it, I almost thought, well, I'll let you guys say what you guys think it is, and then I'll tell you what I first thought it looked like. Maddie, do you have any guesses?
Looks like a curvy kitchen knife sitting in the grass. So that's what I'm going with.
Okay.
Large statue of knife in a bush. It's a little
Looks like
unfair.
it's near a river or something. Is it like a waterfall?
I'm like 85% sure this is Washington, D.C.
I'm like 85% sure it's not, but...
Damn. 85%, not 99.
Yeah. Jim's not too far off with the waterfall. When I first saw this, I thought it kind of looked like Cinderella's glass slipper. You know, like it kind of looks like a platform heel or a high heel shoe with the band that goes over your foot. So that was kind of what I thought it looked like at first. But we'd love to see what our listeners say in the comment section of Facebook. So check out the Flying Midwest Podcast on Facebook. Look for this week's edition of the Sectional Showdown and let us know what you think this symbol is. And bonus points if you can tell us where it is. Thanks again to Pilot Quarters for sponsoring this section. Go check them out at pilotquarters.com.
Attention aviators. If you're passionate about flying, you need to check out Pilot Quarters. They are a pilot-owned family business based right in the Midwest in Michigan. They are on a mission to create your next favorite flying shirt. From comfy camp shirts to stylish polo shirts, sundresses, and tees, Pilot Quarters crafts unique aviation apparel. Choose from full-color chart designs, subtle overlays, or even wild tropical pattern blends with your favorite charts. Elevate your style and aviation passion. Visit pilotquarters.com today and soar in style. Aviation friends, let me share with you an absolute game changer in eyewear. I am personally hooked on Flying Eyes optics. Their stylish designs pair seamlessly with your headset for superior comfort. I used to fly with those cheap gas station sunglasses, but since switching to Flying Eyes, I can't go back. They're sleek, durable, and way more comfortable. Trust me, your eyes deserve the upgrade. Check out our affiliate link in the show notes, and make sure you use code FlyingMidwest10 for an unbeatable 10% off your purchase at Flying Eyes. Fly with comfort, fly with style. Visit Flying Eyes Optics today. Let's talk about some of the best active noise reduction headsets on the market. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just taking flight lessons, Lightspeed Aviation headsets are engineered with you in mind every step of the way. They've created the quietest and most durable A&R headsets on the market. Their high quality and innovative technology ensures you stay comfortable, connected, and safe in the cockpit. I've personally flown with Lightspeed for over a decade, and I wouldn't dream of flying with any other headset. Elevate your flying experience with Lightspeed. Check out our affiliate link in the show notes so that you can support the podcast with your next purchase. Aviators gear up for the skies with Flying Midwest Podcast merch. Dive into our latest edition, the striking Ghost graphic designs, available in long-sleeve tees, sweatshirts, and hoodies, perfect for your winter flying adventures. Head over to flyingmidwest.com/merch today and snag some of the coolest gear in aviation.
Well, should we get into some news and events?
I think we should.
Sure.
Well, I will start in Wisconsin, where the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame is looking for donations and help of digitizing the collections of Leo Cohen. For those unfamiliar, Leo Leo Cohn is an aviation photographer from Brookfield, Wisconsin, just down the road from me, who spent his life photographing various aspects of aviation, primarily, of course, airplanes. His photographs were featured in several books that he authored, most notably of which is The Story of the Texan, American Flight Manuals, and The Pilot's Handbook for the Model Yankee Bravo 49 Airplane, and the Armchair Aviator series. The Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame is seeking $65,000 worth of donations for the project, which would include hiring a professional preservation company to digitize the entire collection. This would include making correct color corrections to what are obviously primarily black and white photos, labeling them appropriately, and making the images searchable on an online database. As of the time of this recording, near the middle of May, WAHF says that they've received approximately a third of the donations that they need. For those that are interested in learning more about Cohn, there will be an exhibit of his work at the Kelch Aviation Museum in Broadhead, Wisconsin, featured on June 9th. And those interested in learning more about how to donate to the cause can visit the Wisconsin Aviation Hall of Fame's website at wahf.org. Okay.
All right. Moseying on over to Minnesota, Mark Westlake, the teacher and director of the St. Thomas Academy Innovation Center in St. Paul, Minnesota, was selected as the National Aviation Hall of Fame's 2024 Scott Crossfield Educator of the Year Award. That award was founded in the 80s by a gentleman named Scott Crossfield, who was a research pilot, test pilot, and aerospace researcher, and he helped develop the spacesuit, actually. And so he founded that, and it's an annual competition that recognizes a teacher for his or her exemplary use of aerospace in the classroom. Mark is in charge of the aerospace division, and his students build drones, design pieces for NASA rovers, and there's a lot more that happens there. But Mark is known for his passion, what he does, and he has been doing this for a while. He's actually been teaching for 30 years. So it's really cool that he's actually done a lot of stuff with high school students and elementary students as well. And he's earned a lot of awards over the years for his contributions to aerospace and to his students' lives. So congratulations to Mr. Westlake.
Moving to Nebraska, where it's a little bit of a sad story, and we don't usually like covering sad stories here, but it does affect general aviation quite a bit. Some of you may have heard about the storms that rolled through Nebraska and quite a few other states on April 26th, and it hit pretty directly at Epley Airfield, the main commercial airport in Omaha, Nebraska. Commuters and employees alike had to flee to a storm shelter as the tornado approached, and the airport was, of course, shut down as the tornado hit the airport. Officials say that the airport was closed for a little bit under an hour, and eventually the commercial side of things got moving pretty good, but the GA side of things were hit pretty hard. And looking at some of these pictures here, it's pretty significant, the damage that's done. I'm seeing planes flipped over upside down, gears collapsed, planes that are completely totaled. So obviously it's a sadder side of the news, seeing how all of this happened, but it is aviation related and affects a lot of people there. We would be remiss, though, if we didn't mention that while this is sad for the aviation side of things, the storm ended up killing 5 people throughout Oklahoma, Iowa, and Nebraska. So planes can be replaced, people cannot. So focusing on the aviation stuff, but our hearts and prayers go out to everybody affected by those storms. And this storm kind of hit home for me because thankfully everybody in my family is okay, but I do have family out in the Omaha area, so I've been following this one pretty closely, so I appreciate you guys letting me share this one.
Glad to hear your families are at least. Crappy deal, but...
Yeah. All right. Heading over to Michigan, which I guess we don't talk about very much. Cirrus, we love them here on the podcast. Actually just announced its delivery of 7 Track 20 G7 Cirrus aircraft to Western Michigan University College of Aviation, the Cirrus Vision Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. Cirrus and this university announced a purchase agreement for 32 aircraft in total. The G7 is the latest generation of the Track series. These are the Track 20, 22, and 22T. So these are basically the pilot training versions of the SR20, 22, and 22 Turbo. So it's just the training versions. Western Michigan is actually just renewing their airplanes. So they have Cirruses already, and they're getting some new ones. They're just updating and upgrading them. Cited in the article is the CEO of Cirrus, who we were able to meet at Oshkosh last year, Sean Nielsen. And he's excited for this opportunity that will help the students at Western Michigan position themselves for a career in aviation. So the G7 incorporates a ton of fun new stuff, and their perspective system, so that's their avionics package, by Garmin, is updated and better than ever, all that good stuff. So they've been in partnership since 2005, and they're continuing with that, which is fun. So that'll be fun for Western Michigan University.
Okay, so even though Washington, D.C. is not the Midwest, this is a huge general aviation story coming out of Washington, D.C., and it's super cool. On May 11th, there was a flyover of a whole bunch of national monuments, including the White House, of general aviation planes. The flyover featured more than 60 general aviation aircraft, which covered a wide variety of generations and types of aircraft. For those not familiar with the airspace around Washington, D.C., it's obviously very restricted where you can and cannot fly, because obviously, especially in the post 9/11 world, airplanes over national monuments are kind of, well, we want to know exactly who they are, what they're doing, and where they're going to be going. This hasn't happened since before 9/11. The flight was a scenic tour of Washington, D.C. that the highlight, I'm sure, for all of them was being able to fly over the White House. It was a collaboration of a lot of legislation, AOPA, a lot of other organizations as well, to get these 60 aircraft, or what they're calling 15 chapters of history, represented in order to celebrate the 85th anniversary of AOPA. So super cool. I think I'm going to have to add this to my bucket list of things that I do. And I know at least one of the major aviation YouTubers featured it on their channel. And I would not be surprised if there's going to be more videos to come. Very, very cool.
Oh, yeah. At least, I think, a couple of years to get everything together. Like, it's been a work in progress. It wasn't just like, hey, we're going to fly over the National Mall. That probably wouldn't have gone over well. But
right. I can't imagine the work that went into that. And that's, what a cool experience that would be, though, to be a part of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw some pictures. It's like, it almost doesn't look real. And that's so weird because, like, we see pictures of airplanes every day. It's particularly special to see it that low over, like, the Washington Monument and stuff like that. It's crazy.
I'm pretty jealous.
Yeah.
Jealous. Okay. Can you believe it? We actually have Iowa in our roster of news today.
What?
I know, right? It's a rare
It's not
happening,
Illinois.
but it is happening. And it's pretty cool, too. So this was about a month ago. But at a fly-in breakfast, of course, as these things happen, 5 separate pilots from Iowa were awarded the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. If you're not familiar with this award, it is an award that you can receive when you have 50 hours of safe flight, so no accidents or anything, for a whole 50 years. There are only 108 recipients of the award in Iowa, and I don't know if this involves the 5 that were given it or not, but if anything, that's not a very common award to receive. Cecil Schenk, Donald Lindholm, Arnold Spursflaga, Dennis Morton, and Robert McDowell. Congratulations, everyone.
50 years of safe aviation is nothing to scoff at, but I always find it interesting that an award named after the Wright brothers, rightfully so, the inventors of powered flight, but 50 years where the Wright brothers themselves couldn't even make it 5 years without their first crash. So, no, but in all seriousness, congratulations to all of them who received that award. Well, I was not a part of this interview. You guys went on without me. So I am really excited to actually listen to it. So who do we have and who do I get to listen to?
All right. On today's episode of the Flying Midwest podcast, we're pleased to announce a very special and long-awaited guest, Patrick from Answers to the ACS. We were supposed to have Patrick on back in, I think, December. But through a series of delays and COVID and all that good stuff, finally got to meet up with him and chat with him about his life. And so Patrick is an airline pilot, but before he was an airline pilot, he was an avid CFI who had a dream, or more of a question of, why has nobody done this before? So he set out to make what is called Answers to the ACS, and it's a pretty cool deal. So without further ado, here's Patrick.
All right. Well, Patrick, welcome to the Flying Midwest podcast. So happy to have you with us to talk about answers to the ACS, as well as a whole bunch of the topics that we're going to throw at you and not explain them first. So
sounds great. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you, my friend, have done a little bit of your own research. You're aware of what's coming with our Fast 5 questions. It's just our icebreakers to get everyone good and warmed up and ready to go. So are you ready for this?
No, we'll find out.
Okay, I made them super hard for you because you said that you listened before. So,
okay.
Question number 1. I'm going to go right to the inflammatory. Least favorite aviation film character?
Least favorite aviation film character?
Uh-huh.
Oh, wow. You've really caught me off foot there.
Would you like a pass and come back to it?
We could, or you could start rattling off some people. I don't even know where to begin.
I would normally... this guy's grown on me, but Hangman from Top Gun 2.
Okay.
Couldn't stand the guy right out the gate.
Yeah, he was really annoying. Oh, Denzel Washington's character in what
He just came to mind.
Yeah.
You know, I really liked Hangman.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
I liked how he turned it around at the end, but for most of the movie, I was not a fan of him.
Yeah, I wanted to see more of him at the end. I was a little disappointed, you know?
Yeah.
Denzel Washington, I liked him in, what was it, Flight?
And so I liked his performance. His character made me want to,
I'm drawn right.
It was very unrealistic, but...
Okay, thank you. Somebody's just like, well, and I'm like, no, I'm not hearing any of it. No, totally unrealistic. Can't get over it. Promise is great though.
Do you want to stick with him, or should we cover some other people? Let's come back. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Dream airplane to own. You don't have to worry about maintenance costs or anything like that. Whatever you want.
All right. Bonanza G36.
Okay. What about that aircraft that just makes it your dream airplane to own?
I don't know. It's just amazing. So I got a chance to instruct in it back when I worked at Textron Aviation, formerly Cessna, for their employee flying club. And so I got a chance to instruct in them, and they were just amazing. Just air conditioning, the club seating in the back. I really liked how it handled. It's also the vibe, I guess. So, yeah. But yeah, that's definitely my pick.
It's a great answer.
Here's a good answer. I approve.
All right, now is the question I'll ask you that you're prepared for. Favorite airports?
I have to say DFW. So,
DFW?
Yeah, so I've been based there for most of my airline career, but I've flown to many others. It's just a very well-designed airport. So yeah, I really like it. I like it both on the outside and the inside, in the terminal and operating out on the airport.
So what we said about that. All right, we're going to take you back to your CFI roots for this next one.
Okay.
Favorite maneuver?
Probably the Lazy 8.
I knew it.
Lazy 8. That's
CFI's favorite. Yeah. In my opinion, CFIs who are, I guess I don't want to say worth their salt, but like experienced CFIs, Lazy 8's their favorite maneuver. I don't know why. It's every time.
There's a lot to it that a lot of people don't understand, like aerodynamics wise. Ironically, while I was training in the G36, training a commercial student in it, we were having a lot of problems with it because it's a higher performance airplane. So I kind of took it on myself to dig into the weeds and study the maneuver and try and figure out how we can fly it with this airplane and meet standards. And I learned a lot in that process, and that's how it used to be my most hated maneuver, and it became my most liked.
All right, and the last question for you. If you could meet and have a conversation with anyone in aviation, dead or alive, who would it be?
Okay. Oh, man. That's a really good question. I'll probably have to go back to the beginning and say the Wright brothers. Let's say Orville.
Has anyone actually said that answer before, Maddie?
I don't think so.
It's such an obvious answer, and no one has ever said it.
They're not cool enough, I guess.
No?
You know.
No, I think you're the first person to say that.
In 3.5 years of doing.
What were some other answers?
We've gotten Lindbergh quite a few times. We've gotten Amelia Earhart a few times. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Bob Hoover a few times.
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of the standouts that are...
Those are good ones.
So, yeah. All right, Patrick. Well, thanks so much for playing along with our Fast 5 questions. I think you get all the points, so congratulations. So,
hey, I'll take it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. So, Maddie, you want to take it away with the interview questions?
I would love to. So, Patrick, what got you started in aviation, and what has your journey been like so far?
What got me started? Well, it was my dad. So I started learning to fly back in 2002. Now, granted, the flight training wasn't regular per se. We were flying at first maybe once a month or so. And as I got closer to 16, the frequency picked up. And the stars aligned. I managed to solo on my 16th birthday. And weather worked out and everything. I still remember that day. And then, let's see, I got private instrument commercial, multi-engine, CFI in 2008. So I went to college from 2008 to 2012. I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering. And when I graduated, I was kind of at a crossroads because at the time I had something over 1,000 hours. I could have gone to the regionals, but I also had an electrical engineering degree. So it was I had to decide which way I wanted to go. So this was 2012. So at the time, the pay at the regionals was still pretty low, in the 20s, like 20,000 a year or so. So that kind of scared me off of that because if I would have gone, I would have gone to American Eagle because I was born and grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But yeah, the pay scared me off. So I decided to try the engineering route. So I sent my application to a number of aviation companies. So at the time it was still Cessna, so I sent one to them, Bombardier, Garmin, I think Piper as well, maybe a couple others. And the only company that responded was Cessna. So they gave me a call and they said, hey, we want to interview you. So I went for the interview and got hired and started with them in 2012. And while I was there, like I was talking about earlier, I instructed part-time at the Employee Flying Club. In 2014, that's when Cessna and Beechcraft merged, and it turned into Textron Aviation. You guys, I'm sure, already know that. And while I was there, in terms of my full-time job, I worked at first about 2 years on the Pistons, more specifically the Cessna TTX, if y'all are familiar with that. Mm-hmm. Also known as the Corvallis, also known as the T240. There were so many names for it. And it was electrical / avionics work. And then my last 2 years there, I worked on the Citation Longitude. So the program, and it looks like you guys are familiar with that too.
That's really cool.
2016, I got laid off, and the timing was great because I came back to Dallas and the regionals were hiring like crazy. And they were paying pretty good. Now it was like 40, 50,000 a year. So it's like, well, I think this was meant to be. By this time, Eagle had become Envoy. So I hired on with them in 2017, early 2017. The first 2 years, I was a first officer on the Embraer 145. The next 3 years, I was a captain on the 175. I upgraded on the 175. And then my last year there, I was a sim instructor on the 175 program. And then after those 6 years, I flowed to American, which is where I currently am. I'm on the Airbus 320, and I've been there for about a year now. I mean, I would say it's absolutely, fantastic. I love it, and I've elected to do things in addition to those things on the side that I've taken on myself, such as this answers to the ACS stuff.
you talked a bit about answers to the ACS, which is a product that you have developed and put out into the world. So tell us a bit about what that product is, what caused you to decide to create it and put it out for others to benefit from.
Back in 2008, when I was studying for my CFI, I was, like many others, going through the PTS line by line and addressing, each item. And I thought to myself, surely there's a product out there that is the answers to the PTS, where I don't have to dig in the AIM, in the regs, and the Pilot's Handbook for Aeronautical Knowledge, Airplane Flying Handbook. Instead of going to all these scattered sources, surely someone has made something like this, not just for CFIs, but, private commercial applicants, that kind of stuff. And I couldn't find any. Really, there wasn't anything like that out there. Now, years after the fact, I did find out there was something. Very little known. I don't know how the guy sold it, but he kind of made more or less a binder thing and was selling it. It was a retired Air Force pilot, and I just happened to find it in a dark corner of the internet.
That's not a good sales strategy, hiding your things in the darkest corners of the internet.
I mean, there's definitely a cool factor to it. Unfortunately, you can't sell it. That's something that I remembered, years later, kind of late 2016, early 2017. I was like, I think I'm going to start to do something like this. This was just before the ACS came out. So I kind of started slowly putting something together. And then the FAA came out with the ACS, and I was so discouraged. I was like, oh my gosh, this is huge, and this changes everything. Now, luckily, I didn't get too far along with this project. So after I stopped sobbing, said, this is a good opportunity because it's brand new. Nobody has really done anything yet. So this presents an even better opportunity. So basically what I started doing is going through each of the elements, the ACS, and addressing each of them. And at first it was going to be something pretty brief and short, but I kind of told myself that I can do better than that. So I tried to address each element objectively and correctly. So, I dug through all the sources I could. The topic was regulatory, legal interpretations, historical regulations, that kind of stuff, seeing how things evolved, and then kind of condensing that into a very practical answer so that you could understand what was going on. The end product became basically books, but I would call them manuals because they're huge. I guess you'd say as a testament of how different the ACS is from the PTS. So back when the ACS came out, there were a lot of people, whether it was the FAA or flight training providers, kind of downplayed the difference between the ACS and the PTS. And so what that resulted on my end is it took me 2,000-page books to address each ACS. So that's how much information is in each of these manuals. So at first, the way I was distributing this product was on Apple Books, because most pilots have Apple products, iPads, iPhones, that kind of thing. So then I developed an app over the course of about a year, and we released that last September. It's very similar to what we use at airlines. It's basically a document viewer. So you can basically access a library and all those documents in it. So that's where we're currently at. It's only on the App Store, and you can access the manuals, and I also put in all the sources I reference. So there's obviously the known sources like the FAA handbooks and stuff like that, but also those hard-to-find sources that I've been able to address these elements thoroughly with. That's where we're currently at with this.
So you talked about how you're able to take these different sources and, like, as opposed to, all right, I grab my ACS. And say for me, for example, I'm writing a lesson plan as I'm working on my CFI rating. And I go, all right, well, there's all these different sources. So what you're doing essentially is also, line by line, combining that information into maybe a more digestible format. Is that accurate?
So it is a textbook, and it's It's a good looking. It looks like a real textbook kind of thing, but it's organized in accordance with the ACS.
Okay.
So basically, you'll have a table of contents, and that'll lead to each task. And the way it's divided. So like I said, there's 2 books that address each ACS, about 1,000 pages each. The first book addresses only area of operation 1. Which is exclusively evaluated during the ground portion of the check ride. So that's why, that area of operation is so big, because that has basically the same amount of knowledge as all the other areas of operation. So the first book is just area of operation 1. So table of contents basically takes you to the different tasks. And then for each task, you get that table from the ACS. And basically all those elements in that table are hyperlinked, and you just tap them and you go to that element in a more digestible format. And then all the sources basically have endnotes, which you go to the back of the task and you'll see all the references that I used. And there's lots of pretty pictures and figures and stuff like that, which took a lot of time to do, but it was worth it. Looks really good, really slick.
I've been so excited, seriously. Like, I've been doing a lot of initial CFIs and then like double eyes and stuff. So having this stuff, like, it's always a mountain. I feel like it's, there's got to be a better way, which you have presented, which I didn't even know about it. One of my students did. He had your book, like, in book format before you had the app, which I thought was really neat. And so as soon as I started saying something, I was like, oh, cool. Somebody else knows about this thing that is super helpful that I wish I had known about. Because I love compiling information. I love having all the sources. But man, is it hard to keep them all in one place.
Yeah.
So
we certainly have an era of younger pilots coming in onto the scene that their attention span might not be conducive to say, oh, there's 1,000 pages. I can't do this. What are your thoughts or ways that you deal with those who look at that and go, oh, this is just so daunting?
The only people that I have dealt with are the people who get it, Mm-hmm. Now, I have talked with, instructors and stuff, and they'll say, in general, people are lazy. They want videos and stuff like that, and we are working towards that. But in terms of when you talk about different mediums, as an instructor, there's advantages and there's pros and cons to the different types, right? Yeah. So the pro for video, for example, is if you're demonstrating something physical like a maneuver or whatever, video is a lot better. But the advantage of books or written medium is the volume of information you can transmit. If you tried to make a video over the entire ACS, I don't know how long that video is going to be.
It's going to
I don't know how. It's going to be longer than Lord of the Rings, that's for sure. So it'd be very long. So that's not the most efficient way, to do that. But in terms of your question, the thing is, we talk about 1,000 pages. What about $1,000? That's the going rate for a check ride now.
Mm-hmm.
And it behooves applicants to be as prepared as they can possibly be. So as an example, I think Matt Teller discussed this on his episode, and other examiners have been talking about this. The failure rate, the unsat rate for check rides in some parts of the country is approaching 50%. In some places, it might have exceeded. And you talk about the younger generation of pilots and the faster movement that we've been seeing that has resulted in a lower average experience level for CFIs, and that it's all kind of compounded. Basically, there's a lot on the line, whether it's $1,000 check ride or the thousands you've spent for your license, things like that. You want to be as prepared as you possibly can. People understand that, and that's why they like my products, But I mean, I'm not insanely famous or,
not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, I know. This will be it.
This podcast, it's going to set
it's your big break.
Exactly. But I think I have had very surprisingly little people say that, like, oh, this is excessive, that kind of thing. The vast majority of people, I would say 95%, are like, no, this is good. This is the right amount of information because this is what the ACS asks, and this is what you say. You address that element.
So as an instructor, when you were instructing, what were the biggest hurdles that you saw your students struggling to make it over as they became pilots or as they continued in their pilot journey? Especially, did any of that influence what you did with answers to the ACS?
Yeah, check ride prep, being organized for the check ride and stuff like that. So, everything that I'm currently doing, every aspect of it has been motivated by issues I've seen in the past. So, one other aspect of my products, this one's free. You can download it for free, is we call the check ride workbook. So it's about like 30 some odd pages or whatever. And it contains a bunch of forms that if you fill them all out and understand them, you will be very prepared and organized for the grand portion of the practical test. And pretty soon, so right now we're in the process of making these videos, but starting next month, I'll begin releasing these videos. Mainly on YouTube and probably shorter snippets on the other platforms, explaining the check ride workbook. But applicants, being organized, making sure they've done everything they need to do. Same with the instructor, same with me and other instructors. Making sure we've remembered to do everything, whether it's their logbook or everything that the applicant needs to do, the morning of before the examiner arrives. So all that stuff is factored into that check ride workbook. So I would say, definitely the preparation and organization before and during a check ride was definitely a big hurdle.
The thing that I'll add to that is I've looked over some of these, prep sheets that you've got, and like I'm a kind of a proponent of the binder. I've got everything in a certain order and it's ready to go, and I can just flip over to whatever the examiner needs. But as I look over your checklists, it covers a lot of this stuff that I would probably put in that binder, if not all of it, and probably more. So I kind of wish
you've looked at it.
I kind of wish I had this when I did my commercial check ride. But
how did you find out about it? Because I didn't tell you anything about it.
See, I also do my research before I do a podcast episode.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Like that, and Maddie knows this. Maybe you know this from listening, but I'm working on my CFI initial right now too. So I'm
okay. Very good.
I'm looking as we started conversing way back when. I'm like, well, let's look at some of the stuff he's got here. And like I said, I'm a big fan of the whole binder concept. And I'm like, well, what's this workbook? What's this about? So just the way it's laid out. I mean, like for me personally, I'm like, this is about the order I would want to lay it out to begin with. So to have it, it's one thing for me to remember it on my own, but another thing for, say, especially once I get into instructing and all right, I certainly don't want to forget something and set up my students in a position where they're not as prepared as they can be. So something like this I think it's beneficial. So this has been out for a while now. What are some of the general reactions you get both from students and examiners?
So examiners, I'm still pretty little known. My exposure isn't that high. But based on what little exposure I've had, the reaction from examiners is very good. And I would say if you look at the percentages of people that are using my products, examiners make up a large portion, especially if you were to compare it to other like online ground schools and stuff like that. I would say that the proportion of examiners that use and like my stuff relative to those things are probably infinitely higher, even though they still make up a small portion of the total people that use it. So examiners really like it because I get into these details, citing all these innocuous sources and stuff like that to try and get to the right answer versus the gouge answer, which is what most places go for. There's so many applicants showing up that aren't qualified, and it's burning check ride slots because, wait times for examiners are like 3 months or something like that, So he's been getting so many of these that he puts it on his website. He tells them on the phone, on the email, however they contact him, that if your logbook's not up to snuff, if you're not qualified to take the test, you're going to forfeit the check ride fee. And if you You want to retake it with me, you have to pay another fee. Or you can go to another examiner and obviously pay them the fee. But that's what he's doing because it has gotten so bad. And, it's one of those things where it's like, what can you do? You have to put a pressure on people. In terms of students, they like it, Some feedback that I've gotten from a couple students, or customers, I guess you'd call them, is they say it fills a lot of gaps in training. So they're very appreciative that this can fill those gaps.
As an active instructor, it's hard to find all the gaps, especially when, like my school, we use an online ground school for ours. So all my students, it's their responsibility to get through it. But, there's so much that either didn't get covered, isn't covered in really great detail. So some of the onus is on the student, but some of it is on the instructor. And there are a lot of instructors who, aren't the quality of instructor that they either could be or shouldn't be instructors anyway. So it is hard, especially when the student is the one who, bears the brunt of that. I want to make myself better and things like that. And that's why resources like these, I think, are so helpful. It's so much to keep in one's head at a time.
There is.
And to make sure that all your students know the things that they're supposed to know.
Yep.
Oof, it's a lot. Thank you for putting that together. Holy cow.
Well, thank you. No, thank you for appreciating it. Yeah.
It's been a little bit since Answers to the ACS came out in its original form. Is this kind of what you expected when you made it?
Yeah. So when I started this project, I was envisioning maybe like a 300-page book that would address each ACS. And obviously that didn't happen. It was 2,000-page books for each ACS, But no, it's evolved. And I didn't know that I would go to an app at first, which has now ended up happening. So yes, it has evolved over time. So yeah, when I started, no, I had no idea how it would end up looking, and I had no idea of the challenges that I would face.
Have you had successes to overcome those challenges?
I mean, it's out there, there's an app, there's an app with, the 5 books and all the other stuff on there. So, yeah, there have been successes to overcome those challenges. Yeah.
Well, clearly you're still doing it, so there must be something there.
Yeah.
Is there any plan for the future? Or is this kind of it? Yep, this is good. Just kind of keep this going.
Basically, we'll build on functionality and content in the app. So, one of the things we'll do pretty soon this year, we'll do videos. And basically the thought is it will cover the an entire check ride and the preparation for that check ride broken up into bite-sized videos, probably less than 10 minutes, videos.
Okay.
So building up the preparation and then covering each task in the ACS in video form.
That'd be awesome.
We'll do. And we'll do that for each rating. Yeah. So basically it'll be more or less the book in video form. Obviously not everything, because I talk about everything, but basically a check ride and how it would look and what you need to do and stuff like that. Yeah, that's probably what we'll do. That'll be the next big thing for the app. And also I have to finish a series. So the 3 ACSs that I address for the time being are private instrument commercial. So private and commercial are complete. 2 books out for that. We're currently working an update to one of the private and commercial books. Instrument just has 1 though. The addresses area of operation 1 and 2, so the ground portion. So still have to complete the second book for instrument. So whenever an update to a document happens, or a new document, new book comes out, it just pops up in the app, kind of thing. It's basically pull the refresh, and yeah, it goes in there. But yes, volume 1 for they're called volume 1 and volume 2 for each certain rating. Volume 1 for instrument is out. Yeah.
In your experience, then, as you're putting this together, you're getting feedback from people. What are some misconceptions that you've been able to pick up on?
One of the biggest ones that I've talked about in the past quite a bit, so I have a blog on my website and stuff like that, is inoperative equipment, which closely ties in with required equipment. So, everybody loves the acronym tomato flames, for assuming we're just talking about the ABFR required equipment. But you could lay tomato flames, the instruments and equipment that constitutes on a table, that's nowhere near a flyable airplane. The minimum equipment for VFR is much more than tomato flames. And to understand that, you have to understand the 91.213, the inoperative equipment. That's the direction. Tomato flames is a lie. That's the direction we're going.
Wow, that is a hot take.
Got to the unpopular opinion yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's okay. No, I'm curious. No, I'm enraptured. You have my attention.
Undivided attention.
Please, I want to know.
Sure.
Please tell me why this is all lies.
Okay. So, first off, in years past, you'd probably have DPs asking that question, or what's the required equipment for VFR, and applicant will rattle off tomato flames, and you can check that box. Now, I would say nowadays most examiners understand that that's not true, so they wouldn't be asking that question. And also, the ACS doesn't direct examiners to ask that question. What they're supposed to ask, or what they're supposed to do, is present a scenario in which equipment is inoperative, and they see the applicant follow the decision-making process on what they're supposed to do. And part of that process is evaluating, is that equipment required or not?
Mm-hmm.
To understand why tomato flames is a lie, you have to walk through 91.213. So 91.213 basically says, first, determine if the equipment is required or not. And what you're supposed to check is 4 sources of information. Okay. Now, one of them is operational regulations, which includes 91.205, tomato flames and stuff like that. But it also includes a bunch of other stuff, like if you need a two-way radio or if you need a transponder. You also have to think about those things.
Space rules, true.
In terms of operational regulations. But then beyond that, you have to check the certification regulations. So that's Part 23, Car 3. Car 3 for older airplanes, Part 23 for newer airplanes. Airworthiness directive. There are some airworthiness directives that require certain equipment. Popular example is Cessna 210s. There were a bunch of accidents in the 1980s because the vacuum pump failed and they lost the attitude and heading indicators and crashed in IMC. So the FAA came out with an emergency AD in the 80s requiring 2 vacuum pumps on Cessna 210. So Cessna 210 requires 2 vacuum pumps, and that's required by AD. And then the last source, the equipment list or the KOEL, kinds of operation equipment list. So the Piper Cherokee has a fuel pressure or fuel flow gauge. That is required. It's not in tomato flames, but it's required because pump-fed engines, so unlike low-wing airplanes, they're non-gravity fed, they require a fuel pressure gauge to make sure that the pump is working. The Piper Cherokees, once again, they have an electric fuel pump, right? That the older 172s, carburetor 172s don't have, right? That is also required equipment. So those are all examples of just instruments that are required, but they're not in 91.205.
Man, isn't being a pilot great?
And there's a ton
so many things.
Yeah. Well, that was super fun and really interesting. And oh my God, I want to go learn it. I need to go read about that. But we have, that was inflammatory, but I think we can get a little more inflammatory. Jim, do you agree?
I think we could try.
Let's see if we can not offend any government entities with this, though.
Okay, we'll try.
Jim, is it time?
I think it might be time.
Okay. Patrick, what, and yes, you must choose one, is your aviation unpopular opinion or hot take?
Trying to think if I want to say this. I definitely have a lot of unpopular.
Oh, no, I'm sure. I could tell, which is why I limited you to one.
10 years ago, this wouldn't have been an unpopular opinion, but now I think it is. And it's basically trying to turn, flight training in general aviation, training in single pilot airplanes into airline flying. So one of those, and I don't want to, offend you if you do any of this, Maddie, but verbalizing checklists, doing takeoff and approach briefings, doing call outs, I don't think that's appropriate in single pilot flying. And yeah, 10 years ago, checklist use was definitely in full swing, but these things weren't really being done, and which I think is, that's definitely appropriate. But yeah, now it's 2024. Saying that, it's probably an unpopular opinion now.
It's a little spicy.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised, but yeah.
All right, so if people are looking for answers to the ACS, where can they go find your materials, Patrick?
On the App Store. On the Apple App Store, just type answers to the ACS in the search bar and you'll find it. Or you can find it off my website. There's a link to it all over the place there, answerstotheacs.com.
And we'll certainly have that in our show notes too if anyone wants to check that out. So, all right, Patrick, well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We wish you all the best in your ventures with answers to the ACS. Hopefully that is something that people can find some value in and will benefit them along the road too.
Thank you very much, Jem and Maddie. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to talking to you guys again.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much again to Patrick for joining us on this episode of Flying Midwest Podcast, talking about answers to the ACS. If you are interested in checking that product out, it's www.answerstotheacs.com. Link for that will be down in the show notes. So, Mr. Badger Pilot, what do we have on our next episode?
We have the one and only Rich Wellner. Rich is a Wisconsin aviation YouTuber. He was a founding member of an aviation cleaning product called Plain Perfect, and just an all-around cool guy.
He sure is. I enjoyed his YouTube channel. He touches not just on aviation, but he mixes in kind of camping and cooking. It's kind of a really neat deal. So with Oshkosh coming up in a couple months, those of you who are camping out there might be some good things to check out.
Admittedly, I didn't know who Rich was before this episode, but I have watched his content since, and it's very relaxing. Where he just flies out to cool places and cooks good food and just hangs out. It's great. I love it.
So make sure you push like, subscribe, follow all of the buttons on all of your podcast players so you don't miss that episode. And I guarantee after hearing that, you're going to say, this guy seems super cool. How can I hang out with him? And we will tell you how in the next episode. So stick around.
Oh, just a cliffhanger. You got to listen now.
Dun, dun, dun.
But if you want a sneak peek, you can join us on the Discord community. Send us an email at flyingmidwestpodcast@gmail.com. Get a link to the Discord server, and you can find out what we're talking about without having to wait.
I talk about going on to our webpage and ordering merch, but currently our website is down. If you listen to this episode in a couple months, it's probably back up. But as of the release of this episode, we got some issues with our website. So bear with us. We'll get that back up so that you can order all this cool Flying Midwest Podcast merch for your big aviation extravaganza this summer.
Make sure to like and follow us on all our social media, and you can interact with us there. And don't forget to go look and comment on the Sectional Showdown for this week. We would love to see your guesses. It's a toughie. So head on over there, like and subscribe, all the good stuff.
Well, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Flying Midwest Podcast. And until next time,
See you.
see ya.
Flight Chef 536, contact Minneapolis Center 132.35 today.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Flying Midwest Podcast. Until next time, podcast service terminated, squawk VFR, frequency change approved. Good day.